We are giving away all of these 16 prizes here to celebrate the World Championship, including a signed photo from Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor, which includes a match used dart. Just head over to our Twitter, link in the description, to see our pinned tweet for full details, and don't forget to comment and subscribe.
2023 has been a career-defining year for Chris Dobey, and there's every chance that Hollywood could yet add another plot twist to his script this Christmas. It started in the best possible fashion when winning the Masters, completely unfancied, to book himself a spot in the Premier League, just like the likes of Joe Cullen and Johnny Clayton had done before him. And if anyone was doubting Dobey's ability to compete with the elite, he certainly silenced his doubters. Although he finished 7th out of 8, he was ultra competitive throughout and put in some blistering performances, including a memorable whitewash of Michael van Gerwen. And he had an even more memorable victory over Van Gerwen at the Grand Prix when he won an absolute classic, nailing a 156 checkout for what was probably the biggest win of his career. He said afterwards that he had a newfound confidence to play the likes of Van Gerwen on the big stage from his Premier League campaign. And I would agree with that. He's definitely gone to another level this year. Quarterfinals have kind of been the theme for Dobey, though. He made the Match Play, Grand Prix and European Championship quarterfinals and no further. However, he did himself proud in all 3 of those games, playing well, and it takes a good ton average to get rid of him. He made the quarterfinals at Ali Pali for the first time last year and was whitewashed 5-0 by MVG, though the fact that Van Gerwen went and did the same to Dimitri Vandenberg in the semis suggests it was less about Dobey's performance and more about Van Gerwen's brilliance. Can he go and win the World Championship? I think he probably could on ability, but whether he quite has the mindset to do that just yet, I'm not sure. However, a deep run is very much on the cards. He looks set to face Ross Smith in round 3, and if he comes through that, there's absolutely no reason why Chris Dobey couldn't make the Final Four.
Stephen Bunting loves Ali Pali, and Ali Pali loves Stephen Bunting. Most of his career best moments as a PDC player have come on the biggest stage of all. A semi-finalist in 2021, a multiple quarter-finalist before that. Bunting comes here in good form. New darts earlier this year appear to have definitely helped. A semi-finalist in the Grand Slam, and he made the last 16 in the Players' Championship finals recently. But it's that Players' Championship positive that is also a negative. Bunting was 9-6 up against Van Gerwen and lost 10-9. He just couldn't get over the line, unfortunately, not for the first time. He'll rack up a load of 180s as usual. He'll nail double 16 for fun at times, but might be a bit wobbly when the finish line is in sight. A tricky draw for Bunting, likely to be Ryan Joyce in round 2, who's been in good form himself. Dimitri Vandenberg potentially in round 3, and a fella called Michael van Gerwen thereafter. At 40-1, I actually think Bunting is too short a price and should be double that in my opinion. At 40-1 and that region of price, you need to be asking yourself, can Stephen Bunting actually win the world title? I don't think so, unfortunately.
Ryan Searle, another player who comes into this tournament as a title winner in 2023, won the first Players' Championship event of the year in Barnsley. And he's had an okay year. I think he would have expected or hoped to do a little bit better on the TV stages this year. He did make the quarterfinal of the World Match Play, but that's his only TV quarterfinal. And I think he would have hoped that he would have kicked on a little bit this year, but we know the quality he's got. Played in the Grand Slam of darts, hit a 9-darter against Nathan Rafferty in the group stages before losing the last 16 to Luke Humphries. No shame in that. It was the eventual champion Luke Humphries and the man of the moment. He also lost to the eventual champion Luke in the Players' Championship finals as well. So he's been a bit unlucky with a few of his draws, but he's in the 4th quarter here. Again with Luke Humphries, he just cannot avoid his best mate. But he's got a pretty decent opening tie against either Ian White or Tomei Goto. So I think he'll like that. And he's a player who can do a lot of damage if he's on form. He's a really heavy scorer. And he's been practicing a lot with Gary Anderson. And when you're practicing with somebody who is one of the greatest ever to throw a dart, that can only be a good thing, can only improve. And I think Ryan Searle, even though his TV form hasn't been fantastic considering his ability, we know the ability he's got. He generally has good matches here on the World Championship stage. And this could be really dangerous for Luke Humphries. We expect Luke Humphries to come through this quarter. But even when he does clash with Ryan Searle, maybe this is time for Ryan's revenge.
Andrew Gilding, major champion. 4 words I did not expect to be putting together in a sentence at the start of 2023. Yet Goldfinger's UK Open win was probably one of the most iconic victories in the history of the sport. Who would have thought that he would go all the way at the UK Open, the tournament that has more rounds than any other, and then topple mighty Michael van Gerwen 11-10 in the final? It is literally like a fairy tale script come true. I think the whole darting world was so delighted for Gilding, who's been a model pro for many years, but has always generally struggled to show his very best on the television. He had a UK Open run to the semi-finals 9 years previous, but other than that, mainly first-round exits when we'd seen him on the television. He's always been pretty lethal on the floor, and he also had made finals on the Euro Tour, but to go and do it in a major with the world watching was a fantastic achievement. The rest of Gilding's season has been largely disappointing in terms of the majors, at least. He did make the quarters of the Grand Prix, but even those 2 wins over Rob Cross and Gary Anderson were more as a result of his opponent underperforming. He's had a tricky old draw here as well. He looks likely to play Luke Littler, the 16-year-old world youth champion, in his first game. If Gilding isn't at his best, Littler definitely has the tools to scare him, and he's going to have the crowd on his side too. It's a shame because Gilding is a cult hero in his own right, but it does look like this might be a premature exit at the World Championship. But still, what a year for Goldfinger.
Oh, Gary Anderson, the 2-time world champion, is still going strong at 52, now ranked as low as he's ever been since arriving at the PDC. He goes into this tournament as the 21st seed, and last year he was the 11th seed. But forgetting the rankings, Anderson is actually 5th favourite to win the 2024 World Darts Championship at 14-1. Anderson spent much of 2022 telling us that he wasn't practicing and it looked and sounded like he had one foot out of the door. Not playing anywhere near as much darts as he could have been last year, but in 2023 it's been all change for the former champ. Playing in Euro Tour events for the first time in years and years, turning up at Players' Championship events midweek in the likes of Barnsley, and even winning 3 of them, apparently now even enjoying practicing again. Anderson is in very good form, it's as simple as that. His year-long average in all tournaments and all formats is right up there with the best. Top of the tree, in fact. Back to his prospects for this year's Worlds. At 14-1, I think that's plenty short enough. Probably a tad too short. For the flashes of old-school, vintage Gary Anderson that we've seen in 2023, and there has been plenty of them, his best TV results was a last 8 appearance in the Grand Slam, and he went out in round 2, averaging 88 in the most recent TV event. So let's not be getting carried away. His sliding rankings mean that he could have had a nightmare draw, but luckily enough for Anderson, it's turned out pretty okay. Simon Whitlock in round 2 should be straightforward enough. Dirk van Dijvenbode potentially in round 3, well, he's injured. And then tougher tasks await in the form of Gerwyn Price, then James Wade or Peter Wright after that. Do I think that Anderson can win this year? Not particularly, no. But it could be fun along the way whilst it lasts. In truth, I do think that the longevity for a World Championship required, Anderson doesn't have anymore. The long sets, the two or 3 weeks over Christmas, etc. And the killer instinct from Anderson went long ago, in my opinion, when Gerwyn Price bullied him out of the Grand Slam in 2018.
Gaga, the German giant, Gabriel Clemens. What a tournament it was for him last year. The story of the tournament, in my opinion, he was the first German player to make the World Championships semi-final, smashed Gerwyn Price in the quarter-final 5-1, the match infamous where Gerwyn Price donned the ear defenders to block out the Alexandra Palace crowd. Since that huge victory, though, he's not really kicked on. He's had quite a disappointing year on the tour and on the television. He hadn't won a game until a few weeks ago at the Players' Championship finals, apart from the World Cup with Martin Schindler. But he did make the Final Four in those Players' Championship finals, only losing out to Michael van Gerwen. So he's coming into this with a bit of form and with a bit of confidence. I was speaking to him in my head and he was saying that because of all the media in Germany about him reaching the World semi-final, he couldn't do a lot of practicing compared to what he used to at the start of the year. But that's behind him now. He's peaking at the right time. He's found a bit of form just when he needs to, and he'll be coming into this with a bit of confidence. He is in the same quarter of the draw as Luke Humphries, and he's got a difficult tie potentially in his first game, either Jan van Veen, and we know the year he's had, or Manlok Lung. If it is Jan van Veen like we expect, we know how good of a player Van Veen is, but he's been disappointing recently. Would have been disappointed to lose the World Youth Final to Luke Littler, although Luke did average over 102 and Jan had a poor Grand Slam of darts as well. So maybe Gabriel will see this as an opportunity with the newfound confidence that he has got. Not just his recent performance at the Players' Championship Finals, but knowing that he can perform on this stage and he can go on a deep run and beat the big players. Potentially after that opening tie, if he gets through, he could have Dave Chisnell, who, again, Dave Chisnell, fantastic this year on the floor, 5 titles, including the Euro Tour, but poor on the TV stage. So this could be an opportunity for the German giant.
No player arrived at Alexandra Palace last year with more hype behind them than young Josh Rock, but the Northern Irishman proved up to the billing when racing to the last 16 on debut. Eventually, Johnny Clayton's experience proved too much and some costly missed doubles from Rock. But what a year and what a way to cap it off it was. Kicking on in 2023 was always going to be difficult because last year he achieved so much. He won a Players' Championship event. He was World Youth Champion. He took some scalps on the big stage. But to credit Rock, he's added another string to his bow this year in the form of consistency. The results, particularly on TV majors, aren't that impressive to look at on paper. But when you look deeper into his stats and his performances, he's proven to be a very reliable customer now. He's producing his A game more regularly and he's developing a B game that is good enough to get him through at times. His best run of the majors today was the quarterfinals of the Grand Slam of Darts, where he lost in heartbreaking fashion to James Wade. 15-12 up in a race to 16. He lost the last 4 legs. Match darts came and went. And that is the kind of result that could easily leave a mark on a player. However, when we saw Rock at the Players' Championship Finals last month, it didn't seem to be the case. He made light work of Roby John Rodriguez in his first game and then went out to Gabriel Clemens in a really high-quality affair. Rock actually averaged 112 in defeat, so no alarm signals there. He comes here in really good form, and he has quite an interesting draw in terms of possible progression. He only has to really beat Damon Heta in terms of a scalp to get to the quarterfinals, where Michael van Gerwen would then lie in wait. Can he beat Van Gerwen over that distance? He certainly can, but it's a big ask, especially when you consider the experience of the two at a quarterfinal of a world championship. Rock non-existent, Michael van Gerwen a master of that stage. However, we all know that Rock raises his game for the big occasion, so that would be a match to savour.
The script is pretty much already written for Krzysztof Ratajski. What usually happens is in the majors, the Polish Eagle rocks up, wins his first game in typically gritty fashion, then falls at the second hurdle. That's exactly what's happened in almost all of the TV tournaments this year and at the Worlds last year. Forever a solid player, but not someone who's going to be banging in bundles of 180s and posting averages of 107. And at 46, Ratajski is possibly on the slide. He's now ranked 24, which tells you much of the story, and will face either Jamie Hughes or David Cameron in round 2. And whoever comes through that round 1 clash is likely to fancy their chances against Ratajski, but let's be fair, the Polishman will be favourite. A potential round 3 clash with Johnny Clayton is then on the cards, and although the Welshman is out of form, you'd expect him to be too much for Ratajski. Ratajski is 200 to 1 to win the World, so that means if you put £10 on, you're going to return 0, because he won't be winning.
Jose de Sousa comes into this tournament as the world number 25 and he is not in great form. He's obviously a former Grand Slam champion in 2020 and we know the quality that Jose de Sousa can produce. He's hit some enormous averages than before. He's hit 127 average once on the Pro Tour. He's a huge maximum hitter on his day, but he's not the player that he was. He's struggled for form this year. He's not won a title of any sorts since 2021. And his form on television has just been as poor this year. He only got to the 5th round of the UK Open, didn't win a game at the World Match Play or the World Grand Prix, and only won 1 game at the European Championship and lost very early round, first round in the Players' Championship Finals. So it's been a big year to forget for Jose de Sousa. I spoke to him in Dortmund. He's had a bit of difficulty in his personal life this year. His wife's been ill. He's sort of changed his practice routine to try and take a bit of the focus off darts a little bit to try and get his head in the right frame of mind to try and improve his form. But I just feel like that throw is not as good as it was. It was always a susceptible throw and there's an awful lot of shoulder in it. And he could be in trouble here. He's in the first quarter along with the likes of Rob Cross, Ross Smith and Michael Smith. In his first game, he will face either Richie Edhouse or Jeffrey de Graaf. Now, I back Richie Edhouse to come through his first round game, and I think Richie could knock out Jose here. Richie Edhouse is a dangerous player. You know, he's not going to fear anybody, and he's certainly not going to fear an out-of-form Jose de Sousa. So he's going to be very, very careful, Jose. Otherwise, he could find himself falling at the first hurdle at the World Championship. But we know what the Special One can do, but he really needs to show it at the 2024 World Championship.
The surge in popularity that dart has enjoyed in Germany in recent years has been a sight to behold. And ranked number 27 in the world, Martin Schindler has truly emerged as one of Germany's key assets. However, it does feel that diminutive 27-year-old has yet to deliver fully on his immense potential. He's still had a strong year, though, in 2023. A first Euro Tour semi-final, 2 further quarter-final appearances, and runs to the last 8 of the UK Open and World Grand Prix represent good going indeed. And yet, the wall, like me, is probably still reflecting on what could have been for him, particularly in Minehead, where he averaged just 88 in a disappointing loss to eventual surprise champion Andrew Gilding. Schindler had a rotten record here too. In his first 3 appearances, he didn't make it beyond the first round, but he did at least break that hoodoo last year with a run to round 3. He's capable of so much more, though. He'll be looking at what his compatriot Gabriel Clemens achieved 12 months ago and surely be longing for a similarly deep run himself. Clemens captured the heart of a nation last year, and Schindler is more than capable of doing so if he can just string it all together. He's not in the worst part of the draw, though a first game with Watamina or Fallon Sherrock would obviously be a test for differing reasons. Beyond that, Danny Noppert potentially awaits in round 3, and that's not the worst tie in the world for him. Surely a player possessing this much talent must do some damage at the Ali Pali soon.
Daryl Gurney is yet another example of the sheer strength in depth in the world of darts. A winner of a biggie 6 years ago, the World Grand Prix, and a winner of the Players' Championship finals in 2018. The Northern Irishman was flying high, ranked 4, 5 and 6 in the world 3 years running. Big TV semi-finals galore in that period, known for his reliable finishing and his fair share of maximums along the way, both of which have waned over the years. Unfortunately for Gurney, it's been tough going since 2020 and he's slid down to 27th in the world as we speak. Not qualified for the Grand Slam in the last 4 years is a sign of how things have been going for Super Chin. A 2-time quarter-finalist at Ali Pali, most recently of which was in 2021, so he's not averse to performing well on the big stage. Gurney's best performance this year have come in the World Match Play, where he made the last 8 and beat Rob Cross and Gary Anderson along the way. The 37-year-old has still got it, for sure. We just don't see it often enough nowadays. A second-round game against Steve Beaton, or more likely Wessel Neiman, looks tricky for Gurney, and if he does come through that, he's in the same section of the likes of Nathan Aspinall, Dave Chisnell and Gabe Clemens. He'll be underdog against any of them in current form. He's 200-1 to win the world title, which is unlikely, and 33-1 to win quarter 4, which wouldn't be out the question at his very best, but it is unlikely in this form this year.
Brendan Dolan finds himself in the stacked quarter of the draw in this World Championship, the second quarter, with Peter Wright, James Wade, Geraint Price and Gary Anderson. And he could face a fellow Northern Irishman in Mickey Mansell in his first game if Mickey can overcome Jeongjin Zong. And it's not been the best of year for Brendan Dolan, but I think Brendan, from what I've spoke to him with, he's a very aware, self-aware person. He knows his own ability. He knows he's not going to pull up any trees. But he knows that on his day he can be quite dangerous. And we saw that in the World Match Play earlier this year. He knocked out Michael Van Gerwen in the opening round. It was a finishing clinic from Brendan Dolan on that day. And that's what he can produce. And he's pulled off big victories before. So Brendan Dolan is a very, very dangerous player. Like I said, he's not had the best of years on television. He's had a few wins and he had a couple of wins at the Players' Championship finals, but he's not going to be phased. I don't think he's someone who is phased by performances, whether they go his way or not. He knows that when he turns up, when he does things right, when he prepares correctly, he can be a danger to anybody. And he is in a stacked quarter, so I don't expect him to go too far, but don't completely write him off against anybody because we've seen what he can do. He could be facing Geraint Price if he can get past either Mickey Mansell or Jeon Zong. And if Geraint Price is a little bit off it with the Alexandra Palace crowd, tough environment for Geraint Price, then Brendan Dolan could could be a bit of a threat. So watch that space.
Darts romantics will always live in hope that there might be one more special run from Raymond van Barneveld at the Alexandra Palace. But unfortunately, the former world champion is not showing signs of that happening in 2023. I mean, it was remarkable, really, that he might even manage to come back and get his tour card after dramatically quitting the game in 2020 following an embarrassing first-round defeat to Darren Young, the American qualifier. He had his retirement tour. It didn't go to plan. And Barney was a wounded animal, but he came back, got his tour card. And last year, there was actually signs of life. I mean, who could forget his Grand Slam of Darts run to the semi-finals where he played some of the best stuff we'd seen from him in the best part of a decade. It actually looked like he was going to go on and win the trophy in Wolverhampton, though it didn't quite happen for him. That was a special, special run, but we've seen none of that in 2023. He's fallen at the first hurdle in virtually every major. UK Open, he went out at the fourth round, early exits at the Grand Prix and the match play, and then the Players' Championship finals as well. Very, very disappointing year for Van Barneveld. He still gets in here because he is seeded inside the top 32. So he comes in as a seed, but he will be vulnerable against Radek Sagansky should he progress through his round one match as expected. That's a tough opener for Barney, and even if he does get through that, Peter Wright or Jim Williams looks likely to lie in wait in round three. And I'm sorry, but I just can't quite make a case for Barney getting through that one.
Callum Rydz is yet another player who has bags of raw talent, but yet to find the consistency required to propel him to the upper echelons of the sport. Going into the Worlds this year as the 30th seed and going down the rankings rather than up. He was the 23rd seed last year, but got the worst draw possible with Josh Rock in round 2, and Julie was defeated 3-0. A quarter-finalist at Ali Pali in 2022, where he could well have beaten eventual champion Peter Wright with a bit more composure, and that was career best form and something that the 25-year-old has been unable to reproduce since. Regularly capable of whacking in monster averages on the Pro Tour and won one of those earlier this year, but the longer format games tend to find him out on the big stage. Rydz can count himself unlucky again this year as he's had another stinker of a draw. Either Japanese lady player Mikuru Suzuki or talented youngster Ricardo Pietreczka in round 2, either of which would be a difficult task for different reasons, and even if he does come through that, tournament favourite Luke Humphries awaits in round 3. Rydz is 500 to 1 to win the tournament, and that's a fair reflection of his chances.
Kim Huybrechts could be on a collision course with Michael van Gerwen in the third round, being the number 31 seed for the tournament, and 2023 saw him return to the winner's circle, picking up a Players' Championship event earlier on in the year, and he will be buoyed by his performance at the Players' Championship finals. He only reached the third round, but there was a big victory against Gerwyn Price in that tournament, and when you do beat one of the big boys, it does really boost your confidence, especially at this time of the year heading into the World Championship. I think he would have fancied himself to maybe go on a bit of a run. Unfortunately, though, it looks like he is set for an early meeting with Michael van Gerwen, although he has got a tricky round 2 game as well. He's going to either face Richard Veenstra or Ben Robb. Now, Ben Robb is a quality player, so if it was him who comes through that tie, he could cause Kim Huybrechts problems. But Richard Veenstra, we've seen for many, many years what he's done in the BDO. He's in the PDC now, and he beat Michael Smith, the world number 1 and world champion, at the Players' Championship finals. So Kim Huybrechts, even though he might be a little bit confident given his victory over Gerwyn Price and winning a title this year, semi-final of the World Cup as well, it's going to be a tough task if he does meet Michael van Gerwen, or whether he struggles against Richard Veenstra or Ben Robb.
Someone who's never been afraid to do things his own way, treble 19 expert Madars Razma continues to be a deceptively dangerous operator on the PDC circuit. The unfashionable Latvian has grimly held on to 32nd spot in the rankings, which means he enters this year's tournament at round 2, a significant factor when it comes to building one's ranking money. It's been an underwhelming year, though, in terms of results for Razmataz, though he did deliver a reminder of his talents when facing Michael van Gerwen in the opening round of the European Championship in October. He averaged a whopping 105 in a 6-5 defeat, seeing match darts come and go in a painful loss that could at least give him some encouragement after the dust settled, although I'm sure it hurt. Mike De Decker or Dragutin Horvat awaits in his opener, and if it is to be De Decker as the market suggests, there won't be much to split the pair. However, victory for Razma would see him reach round 3 for the first time and give him yet more foundations to build on ahead of what is an important year coming up in his career.